If it's boring, I can go.
¿Listo? Bueno, muy buenas tardes, muchas gracias por venir en esta nuestra sexta plática del Seminario de Divulgación en Investigación de Operaciones. El día de hoy tengo el enorme gusto de que esté con nosotros el doctor Oliver Shüetze. El doctor Oliver hizo su doctorado en la Universidad de Paderborn en Alemania en el 2004. Actualmente es profesor en el CINVESTAV, en el Politécnico en la Ciudad de México. Sus áreas de interés de investigación son la optimización numérica evolutiva con un énfasis en la optimización multiobjetivo. Él ha sido coautor de más de 160 publicaciones, incluyendo 2 libros monográficos, 5 libros de texto y editado 12 libros. Google reporta que tiene más de 4,400 citas. Entonces, bueno, ya ha recibido varios premios, entre ellos un paper por el Outstanding Paper en el 2010. Muchas felicidades y muchas gracias por aceptar esta invitación. El día de hoy nos va a estar hablando acerca de Archiving Strategies for Evolutionary Multi-Objective Optimization Problems. Muchas gracias, Oliver.
No, muchas gracias a ti, Claudia. Y hola a todos. Como siempre, tengo que empezar con 2 disculpas. La número 1, ustedes escuchan, mi español no es tan bueno, so I will speak in English. Sorry for that, right? My talk will be in English. The other apology is that the slides are not that good. 2 days ago, my computer crashed, and I'm not the backup guy. So in a rush, I put them all together. I think it's okay. I made the large changes in the morning, but well, this is the better version. Sorry for this. But yeah, you should be able to understand. I hope, right? Good. Yeah. Before I come to the topic of my talk, I would like to talk a little bit about what I'm doing. My work can be maybe best described by numerical and evolutionary optimization. That is, I'm dealing with the design and analysis of different algorithms for the treatment of optimization problems. Here, I mainly focus on so-called multi-objective optimization problems, and to tackle them, I deal with both classical numerical techniques as well as evolutionary techniques. And I'm also using hybrids of them in order to combine the best of both worlds. I hear that you are all from the mathematical side, right? So normally I give a mathematical talk. My normal talk for these 1-hour presentations is to talk about the particular continuation method, the Pareto tracer, by 2 reasons. First of all, right, it addresses the complete problem. Right, so I have a question. We have the problem. We have an algorithm, and I can explain also all the main steps of the algorithm in 1 hour. Right, but that is not possible. Why? Because I gave a similar talk in 2021 in this series, and another similar talk in 2018 also in this series. So I thought it's time to move on and to have something else. And I decided at the end to talk about archiving strategies for multi-objective optimization, right? The problem is, it's not a problem really. I'm not solving the problem, but I'm solving a sub-problem. But this sub-problem is very important, as I hopefully can convince you. And the other thing is, in 1 hour, I cannot give you all the details, but I will give you the main ideas. And well, if you're interested, further readings in this direction. So I'm talking about archiving strategies, and my talk is divided into 2 parts. First, I will introduce very slowly into the context of multi-objective optimization, right? And in the second part, I will talk about archiving. In the first part, the main thing is what you should take home is that you should realize that if I solve or want to solve a multi-objective optimization problem, I'm not dealing with 1 solution, but with an entire set, even an entire manifold of solutions of a certain dimension. And you may also say that maybe I don't need these manifold because I want to realize 1 project. I want one point at the end of the day. Yeah, but also I try to convince you that there are several candidates which might be of potential interest for you. So at the end of the day, at least intermediate, you need an approximation of this manifold. And that leads us to archiving. That is nothing else than archiving. Data comes in and you have to select which elements you take and which not, because you cannot take all. Right? That is something we'll also learn. And then I will talk a little bit about what we have done the last 10, 15 years in my research group. good. So let us start with the topic. So this is multi-objective optimization, also called Pareto optimization, after its inventor, Wilfredo Pareto, who was an economist and who developed this, well, what is now called Pareto efficiency more than 100 years ago. Right. And to start with multi-objective optimization, I also like to start with classical optimization. Right. And in classical optimization, we all know this. The task is to select the best element out of a given set of alternatives. Right. So you have alternatives and you say, I want like this one. This is the best according to your goal or your objective. If you change the goal, of course, the best element will also change. And let's look at one example. And this example is all the slides are one by one, right? Without animations. Yeah, okay, good. Good. Then just look at the first slide, at the first row. So assume that you are in a small town, and this small town has a tienda, right? A shop, and you would like to buy a vehicle, and this shop has only 3 options available. This is the Mustang, the Tsuru, and the bicycle. Of course, it can also work with 3,000 elements, but it's just harder for me to explain. So you have only these 3 choices, and now we have to see to decide what is the best element, right? And we first go for speed. So what is the fastest vehicle out of these 3 elements, right? Not the Porsche or whatever, right? I have these 3 elements, and out of these 3, there is one clear winner, right? Next thing I say, okay, what about the cheapest vehicle, right? So I'm caring about minimizing the cost. Here also we have a clear winner. This is the bike, right? Now I say, well, it's raining in my town. I would like to have the cheapest vehicle with a constraint that I have a roof, because I would like to drive also in the rain. This is constraint optimization for us, right? So this guy doesn't have a roof. This is not the cheapest guy. These 2 have a roof, but out of them, this is the cheapest element. So the cheapest car is the Tsuru. So we have here now looked at 3 different optimization problems in the classical sense, so as classical scalar optimization problem. And that's also a general thing. Every time we had one clear winner. That is a typical thing. Doesn't have to be, but that's the typical result, that we expect one solution. Now let's make the problem harder. I have looked at speed and cost separately. Now let's look at speed and cost at the same time. So I do not only want to have the fastest car and not only the cheapest car, but I would like to have both of them, right? Don't look here, right? Please not. Look here, right? So the question is, what is an optimal car or vehicle? Sorry. Right? Let us look at the Mustang, right? It's fast, it's great, but the Tsuru is cheaper, right? So this guy is better according to the first objective, speed, and the other one is better according to the other objective, right? So I cannot say that according to the entire system, speed and cost, right, we have that there is a clear winner, right? Out of them, if there is nobody better, I have to call this guy a winner, right? So this, out of these 2, this is the winner and this is the winner. But we had 3 elements. Now we compare the Mustang with the bike. Here is the same, faster, cheaper, right? And we compare these 2 guys, it's the same. So it's a bit funny. So now we don't have one objective, we have 2 objectives at the same time. So we made the problem harder, right? But if the problem is now harder, the funny thing, all of them are winners. Right? But that's it. That's my definition of optimality. If there's nobody who is better than me, I have to be a winner. I don't have to be the only winner, right? But I'm a winner. And in this case, all of these 3 guys are winners, right? So this leads us directly to the notion of multi-objective optimization, right? It's a very common thing that we don't have one solution, but we have more solutions. Not all of them are solutions. This is not the case, right? But there are many solutions. Okay, let's do it a bit more formal. Now I have a optimization problem, big F, which consists of K scalar optimization problems. So I have F1, which maps from a subset of the Rn into the R, F2, F3, until Fk, which all have to be minimized at the same time. Speed is not to be minimized, but the negative of the speed function can be minimized. Then we have a minimization problem, for instance, right? Okay, good. Let's, well, the animation normally helps. I don't have it here. On the right side, the big important question for us, for such a multi-objective problem, what is the solution, right? And A solution is what I said before, an element where there is no beta element according to the entire system. First, I look at, well, I have here a problem which is one-dimensional, and I have two objective functions. So this is F1 and F2. The graphs are here by the green. No, it's not green, by the red and the blue curve, right? And I take these elements. This is a possible realization. Is this optimal? No, it's not optimal. Locally, I have two possibilities. I can go either to the left or I can go to the right, right? If I go here to the right, I will get something which is better according to F1 and better according to F2. So this is not a solution. Analog statements hold here on the right. If I'm here and I go to the left, I see blue and red is getting better. Now, I'm taking the point in the middle. It's not important that these graphs cross. Absolutely not. Just easier for me to explain. So locally, I said I have two possibilities. If I go to the left, I see red goes down, which is good. But on the same time, blue goes up. And if I go to the right, it's vice versa. So this is an element where wherever I look, here I just look locally, right? But wherever I look, it's the same. I will see that maybe one gets better, but on the same time, the other one gets worse. So I don't get it that I get something which is dominating this guy, which is at least as good as in all components, and much better or really better in another component, right? So this is an optimal solution, but I said it doesn't matter that we cross, everything in this range is optimal. In this case, not everything is optimal because we have a one-dimensional optimization problem. This, for instance, is not optimal. But here in this particular case, the entire line segment is optimal. At each of these points, for each of these points, it holds what I just said. You go to the left, one goes up, one goes down. You go to the right, the opposite happens. So this is very typical in multi-objective optimization. I don't have one solution, but I have a set of solutions. Now, this is called the Pareto set, the set of optimal solutions. Every point here has a function value F1 and a function value F2. If I map now the same thing in F1, F2 space, right? So this point here, this against this, can be plotted now in F1, F2 space. And we call the image of the Pareto set the Pareto front. The Pareto front is typically the set which is most interesting for us, because if I look at the design problem, speed and cost of a car, I see immediately here the design. I mean, I see the speed and I see the cost of the car, and I can move around. I can say, you know what, this is very interesting for me. This is also interesting for me is the Porsche, but I cannot afford it. So let's look on the other side. Right. So we have here in a multi-objective optimization problem, K objectives, not only one. And we have the solution set, it's called the Pareto set. The image is called the Pareto front. And well, I put it, oh, it's already there. Yeah, of course. And it's a set of a certain dimension, and the dimension is K-1. If I have K objectives, and these objectives are in conflict to each other, I expect that the solution set, the Pareto set, forms an object, a manifold, at least locally, of this dimension K-1, right? And yeah, for this we need, I want to show it in 2 slides, or just give you the idea that everything is cool, right? From the mathematical side, we have to look at the optimality conditions. That's the theorem of Kuhn and Tucker already from 1951, and it's a necessary condition. If X is Pareto optimal, then there exists a convex weight, and a convex weight is a vector which is all consisting of non-negative elements, and the sum of these elements sum up to 1, such that the weighted sum of the gradient sums up to 0. Right, so that's what we have. So it's a necessary condition. By the way, all I present here is for the unconstrained case, just to make it easier, but there is an analog theorem for inequality and equality constrained problems. But well, for now, it's very important that we can express the problem essentially as a root finding problem. And that's the essential for the next slide. To make you convinced that the Pareto set is a manifold, because using this theorem, I see now that I can define this auxiliary function f tilde, which maps from the Rn plus k into the Rn plus 1, and I just see that while looking at the theorem of Kuhn and Tucker, that for every x there is an alpha such that this function is 0, right? This is just the weighted sum of the gradients, and the sum of the weights minus 1, just Kuntaka says, is 0. So the entire Pareto set is contained in the 0 set, right? And the 0 set of a function, if it's smooth enough, can be expressed, right, or can be analyzed. And the implicit function theorem says that we have to expect a manifold of dimension k minus 1. Locally, k minus 1 comes from this minus this. Dimension of the domain minus the dimension of the codomain gives k minus 1, and that's the dimension of the manifold. Again, if all the objectives are in conflict to each other, right? So we have to deal with a manifold, right? So that is something which is very important for us, in particular for me, for the archiving set, right? But I also would like to say a bit more about this, what this comes with challenges, right? And yeah, the challenges are like this. First, look at this. If we have two objectives, no problem. I'm the algorithm designer, you make the decision, right? So you give me a problem, speed and cost of a car, right? And then say, okay, what's it, right? So you can look, I can compute this front. I don't give you the Pareto set. That could be a 1,000-dimensional set, or a set living in 1,000-dimensional space, right? Because I have 1,000 design variables, but if I have two objectives, I have these one-dimensional manifold, right? And then it's up to you. I will not say this is the best car or this, but then you can make the decision. If you change from car A to car B, well, you will see that if you move from here to there, you have a gain in F2. But at the same time, you have a sacrifice according to F1, because we minimize, and that means lower is better. So we gain from here to here, and we lose or sacrifice from here to here. And of course, vice versa, if I say I have car B, and what happens if I want to have car A? Good. Next thing is the same happens in principle. If I have three objectives, then we have a two-dimensional manifold living in 3 dimensions. 3-dimensional plots are not so easy, but still it is possible, right, to do this. But latest, if I have 4 objectives, the thing doesn't work anymore. I cannot plot 4-dimensional, sorry for that, but I can give you all the projections, right? So every point here would relate to a point here, and a point here, and a point here, and a point here. So 4 different points. A point B is the same thing. I have another point, and then it's of course not so easy anymore to make the decision, right? So if you are maybe the guys who make it, and your boss asks you for something, and you compute this, you're very happy, right? Because you did your job. But then the boss will say, "What do I take right now?" Right? So this is a crucial question. The other question is, if you would like to do this, you cannot get all. It's a manifold. So even if you discretize the manifold of a certain dimension, you end up with a crazy number of points. Like you can get billions of points, right? You will not want to give your boss billions of points and say, here, these are your options, go ahead, right? And even if it's not for your boss, you said, hey, well, I want a motorcycle, I want a car, a vehicle, whatever. I want one vehicle. Even if you're a family father like me, I don't want a manifold of cars. I cannot afford it, right? I want one for me, one for the wife, one for the kid. Makes 3. It does not really make a manifold. So it's of course to say, well, it's complicated to get this manifold. So why should we compute it? Isn't it better that I take the problem and I plug in what I want? Right? Because why should I compute the entire set? And here is Maserati and Porsche. Why should I do that? Right? Because I know that I will never get this, at least this year, maybe next year, but maybe here is more interesting for me. And I don't want the whole region. I tell you what I want, and you give me then one solution. Yeah, that is possible. Right? And that leads to the problem, what I normally call fast motorcycle problem. Right? So assume you have 2 objectives. This is the speed and the cost, what I always say, right? Speed to be maximized and the cost to be minimized. You want these 2 objectives at the same time. So this leads then to a so-called B-objective optimization problem, or a multi-objective optimization problem with 2 objectives. Do not look there, please, right? So next thing is you think that, well, assume you are young, right? It's easy for you. And you say, well, I don't care about speed and cost. I want one car, right? So Papa, Mama, whoever gives me money, I want to spend all the money, right? Papa gives me 100,000, I spend 100,000 for the fastest motorcycle. You may laugh, but that's exactly, well, this is one method, and that's what people do, right? You do this, right? So the task is to get the fastest motorcycle with respect to a given budget, right? That's what you want. And then mathematically, it's nothing else than this. So you maximize the speed with a constraint that C of X is less or equal than your given budget, right? That's the problem. So you transformed a multi-objective into a single objective problem. You plugged everything in your case, what you wanted to put in your problem. So you solve the problem we just learned. If you have a single objective problem, you get one bike, right? And you want one bike. So why not this? Why is this guy talking about archive, right? Well, I don't know, but let's look at the second slide, right? The second slide, well, now assume that we are given this problem, right? And also because I don't like to talk about all these numbers, it doesn't matter, we normalize them. So speed and cost are normalized in 0, 1. You can think about 0 pesos and 1 million pesos. It doesn't matter, we normalize that. And then also it doesn't matter, Papa has 0.5 units for the cost, right? So that leads to your problem. So you maximize the speed, and the constraint is the cost is less or equal than 0.5. And in general, it's just any number, right? So again, we go to a shop, and again, we have 3 options, which makes it easier for me, right? So you have the motorcycles X, Y, and Z, right? I don't know how they are, but I know the speeds and the cost, right? So motorcycle X has a speed of 0.5 and a cost of 0.5. Y at a speed of 0.49 and 0.4 is the cost. And for Z, we have a speed of 0.6 and a cost of 0.1. Now I have 2 questions for you, right? I give you 1 minute, but they're all easy, right? So the first question is, which of these motorcycles is optimal with respect to the problem, right? Easy. And the other one is, yeah, maybe there is one solution. I will not tell you, right? But we expect one. My question is, are the others maybe of potential interest for you? If not, I'm done. I have to go home. But if yes, well, I will continue my talk, right? We will see. So these are the 2 questions. I cannot put to the next slide because the animation is not there anymore. So I will give you 30 seconds to think about. So again, right? So we have this problem. We normalize the values, just, well, whatever, doesn't matter. This is the cost, also whatever. You can think about 0.7 if you want. So that leads to this particular problem. Now we go to the shop. And the shop, we have 3 different motorcycles with these performance values, right? I have now 2 questions. What is the winner? Or is there a winner? Maybe there are 2 winners, I don't know. And are the other motorcycles of potential interest? Yes or no? Yeah, I need a drink. Well. Somebody wants to tell me one answer. ¿Ustedes pueden hablar en español si quieren? Epsilon. No, what epsilon is this guy. That's one of the things. Well, okay. My first question is, which one is optimal with respect to the fast motorcycle problem? The fastest would be the last. That's right. But Pero it's what we say not feasible. It's beyond the limit, right? So it's not like to be considered here. You're right, it's the fastest bike. Yeah, but it's not the solution of the fastest motorcycle problem, which I just defined there. La solución es X, exactamente. La solución es X, porque este es un poco más lento, Este es mucho más rápido, sí, pero no es como factible, ¿no? ¿Feasible es factible? Sí, factible. Este es, está bien, es factible, pero es, bueno, es más lento que ese. So that's it. So we have again, well, we have a fastest bike, yes, but the fastest bike is not the solution of this guy, right? We have one winner here, and that's X, right? Because of these values. Now you get X and you go home, all right? Okay, good. No archiving needed, right? But my question now is, might, I don't say which one is the best, might the others be interesting for you? See? Exactly. Muy bien. Entonces, Y puede ser interesante. ¿Y Z? Z es lo más rápido. ¿Eh? No me gusta. Sí. Pero no es factible. Pero es solo 1% más. Papá, dame un poco más. ¿Eh? Sí, es posible. ¿Eh? So I would say, right, well, there is no option, right? No opinion. X is the only solution of the fast motorcycle problem, period. So if you transform your problem into this, you get one solution. But I would say the others are of potential interest. I cannot say which one is better, but I can say that, or we just said it, Y has almost the same speed, right? And comes with a much lower cost, right? So if 0.1, that's 100%. So we talk about a 10%, a 1% less speed and 10% less cost. Right? And you drive all the time in the town, and 0.5 is 200 kilometers per hour. Well, I mean, 49% will also do it, right? So if Papa gives you 20,000 pesos, you are happy about every velocity, every amount of velocity. You might say, no, I don't want this. And the other one is 10% more, no, 10% faster, but comes with a bit more money, right? But it is outside. Right, so you cannot compute it. It's not feasible. So you cannot consider it for this problem. But it might be interesting for you. So you have 100,000 pesos or whatever. Either you wait 1 week more that you have a bit more money. You ask Papa for a bit more money. Well, that's it, right? So again, I'm not saying that A, X, Y, or Z is good. I'm just saying they might be potential alternatives, right? So we said already, well, we have a manifold, but I don't want a manifold of cars. But my message is that at least in the intermediate steps, it might be good to have the set of candidates, which is nothing else, to get an approximation of the solution set, right? So even if you say, I don't need the entire Pareto front because there is Bugatti Maserati, okay, you cut it off, but the half of the Pareto front is still a Pareto front, and it still has the same dimension. So at the end of the day, yeah, well, sorry, right? If you want to make a good decision, right, why not having as much as possible, as many as possible solutions at hand, which are like well diversified, right? And which give me an overview about of what I can do, and that's nothing else than approximating the archives, the manifold that's archiving. Data comes in, you say what you keep, right? And these are possible Pareto front shapes, 4 of them. This is the classical one. If we have 2 objectives, these Pareto fronts can be convex, concave, convex, concave, right? Here they can be disconnected. Here we see 4 2-dimensional manifolds living in 3-dimensional space. This is the funny one. Why is it funny? Because here it looks like it resembles a 2-dimensional object, right? Because I have, wherever I'm here, I have 2 linear independence directions to go along this manifold. Here it's only up or down. It's a 1-dimensional thing. So this could happen when we have so-called degeneration. I have 3 objectives. I expect something 2-dimensional, but it can be degenerated, right? And if I have a problem and I compute it and I get this, I'm always suspicious. So the archiving has to be very good. I have to trust the archiving to say, yes, well, that's the result. And of course, everything what I said here happens for higher dimensions, because here we have 3 objectives. Everything is cool because I can always watch at it. I mean, I can rotate it and I can see it, but it doesn't work anymore if I have 10 objectives. So I really have to trust the archiver, right? So archiving is very important. It's a subset because somebody has to generate the data in order to make the decision at the end. I will not talk today about this. I will talk about, given a large amount of data, what happens, for instance, in evolutionary multi-objective optimization. How do we make this? Do we make the subset selection in order to get a good representation for the decision maker, so that you, at the end of the day, find your right motorcycle? Okay, good. Before I start, I'm not the first one who looks at multi-objective optimization. They can be classified very roughly in two categories. I always take a third one, but it's essentially two. So first, there are mathematical programming techniques. You know one already. So mathematical programming techniques, out of them, there are scalarization methods, the by far largest class. They say, I have a multi-objective problem. Why don't we transform it into a single objective optimization problem? And the one we just had, right, is the epsilon constraint method. I take my most important objective, I minimize it subject to the constraint which are derived by the other objectives, right? And we see, yeah, it can give a good result, but it is not necessarily the entire thing. But most of these methods in general, they are point-wise iterative. So I get a point, I get another point, I get another point. And at the end of the day, yeah, there comes one point. It's the same thing. And I have a manifold. Why is this solution the best solution? So people like 30 years ago have said, hey, we don't evolve one point, we take a set of points and evolve it. Like evolutionary methods, they take a population, 10, 100, 500 points, and they take this whole thing and evolve it, right? So they take mutation, recombination thing. You're more on the mathematical side. You may even think this is voodoo. It doesn't really matter, right? So they take something and they generate a lot of data. And with this lot of data, right, the question is now how to get the approximation of the Pareto front. That's archiving, right? There are other methods. There's also one method in between. Continuation methods, they make advantage of the fact that the Pareto set is a manifold. So we shoot along, or we derive a drift along this manifold in order to get a lot of points. This is the most efficient thing, I would say, if the Pareto front is connected, but the whole method is local, right? That's the thing. So if the Pareto front is in 2, 3, 4 different connected components, there is no way to jump from one connected component to the other, at least not ad hoc. So today I will take as a basis set-based method, but it doesn't matter. I told you, you can see it as voodoo. Data comes in, right? And out of these data, we need to make a subset selection. And I would like to focus on this today. Good thing is it comes with some, well, theoretical studies, which I have to leave out. Right, just I present the result. Good. Yeah. Now, finally, let's start with archiving, right? And what I present today are basically 3 out of 25 algorithms and archivers, which we have developed during the last 10, 15 years. I have done this with a lot of persons, but the pivotal element I have to mention is Carlos Hernandez, who is sitting in the last row. Carlos has made the master's and PhD with me. Then he went to Oxford, and then as a climax, he went finally to the UNAM, where he is professor since 2 or 3 years. So we were working a lot on different archiving problems. And during the pandemic 2020, we had finally the time to write everything together in this book. In 2021, it was published. As I told you today, I cannot give you all the details about what I present, but you are more than welcome to open this book. Just buy it, it's fine. Okay, good. So another motivation, right? As I told you, I'm not the first one who deals with multi-objective optimization. They're evolutionary algorithms. They are very efficient and used since 30 years, right? So what do they do in order to get this? So for this, we have to understand this slide, right? What we see here is the number of generations of the evolutionary algorithm against the performance indicator. For the performance indicator, I use essentially the Hausdorff distance. The Hausdorff distance is always something you should use if you want to look at convergence between sets, right? Because we have sets. We have a population and we have the Pareto set or the Pareto front. So they are general sets. And if you have general sets, you take the Hausdorff distance. This here doesn't say Hausdorff distance, says delta 2. This is the average Hausdorff distance, because if you have evolutionary strategies or stochastic search algorithms, you will always get noisy data. So maybe 99 out of 100 are in very good shape, but we have one outlier. So you get a good approximation, but Hausdorff distance would say, no, that is not good. That is very bad. So what we see here, we see the result of NSGA2, which is one algorithm, a state-of-the-art algorithm. I will talk about this a bit later, right? Is a state-of-the-art algorithm on a particular problem. It doesn't matter which one, I've forgotten it, but it doesn't really matter because it behaves exactly the same, right? So we see here generation from 100 to 1000. We left out 0 to 100 because I have to say performance indicator is the Hausdorff distance. So I want to have the lower distance. So it means the lower the value, the better the approximation, right? So we left out generation 0 to 100 because NSGA2 is a state-of-the-art algorithm, and the performance indicator for the first 50 to 100 generations will go significantly down. Right, so it will get a good value, but from a certain point on, I get this. What is that? We have a zigzag behavior. So it means that if I take NSGA2, it doesn't matter if I run it for 10 minutes, 1 hour, 5 hours, or 10 hours, right? Because I will not get better, and I will get a zigzag behavior. I might get this result, I might get that one. And that is completely arbitrary. So this zigzag behavior was the first one where we said like, hey, can you not do it a little bit better, right? NSGA2 is the state-of-the-art algorithm. It has more than 50,000 citations. You maybe do not know what it means, but it's just crazy. It's an algorithm everybody uses. It is the Porsche among the algorithms, right? It's really a good algorithm. I don't want to say anything bad about this algorithm, but even a Porsche you can tune, right? So whatever you have, you can still make it better. And here where archiving comes into play. So we've taken this data, which was generated by NSGA2, and this data was plugged into our archiver. And what we got was this result, right? So we get two things, right? We get it better. We said lower is better. And the other thing, you see a kind of monotonic behavior. That is what you would like to do. At one point, you cannot improve yourself, but you don't want this because it's really arbitrarily what you get. I mean, you get very good results in the beginning, and then it's really crazy, right? So we've taken the archive, the population of NSGA2. That was blue, and then we have taken the same data in our archiver. Now we have two sets, and we have generated maybe 100 and 100, so 200 points. So why not taking both of them together, right? So if we take both of them together, I have here 100 points, here 100 points, I should get better. Still, I have this zigzag behavior that comes from this guy, but still we get it even better, right? So that was our initial motivation, and we just, well, that was our initial motivation. This is our result of what we have done afterwards. So we thought ourselves, what do we want to do after we have seen this? I said, we want to have it better, right? But that's what everybody says. Hey, let's do it better, right? So how can we have an impact on the performance, right? So we wanted to have two things. First, we wanted to have for finite runs at least a monotonic behavior that you can say, if you let your algorithm run for 1 hour more, well, you will not have a better result, but it cannot get worse. And that makes sense, right? So you let it run for a longer time, and then you expect at least the same thing as you had before. And of course, you want something better, which we have here and in many other cases, right? And the other thing is that, well, but also like I'm a mathematician, I want to say what happens in the limit. So I'm asking myself about the limit behavior, right? Which we will never reach in computations, but it's okay. If you let it run long enough, it will be good. What is good, right? That's what we're going to do. So in the following, I'm going to talk about 3 different archivers. And I take the first one in more detail, but the first one is the one where we all understand that cannot be the one, right? Because that is the one which takes all. Let's have all. I want the entire Pareto front, right? Why not, right? It works if you don't have too many data points, But if you want to do this, I mean, what I just presented some minutes, right, you will see that will be the bottleneck, and it is not really required. But nevertheless, to understand the other archivers, we start with this, right? So I want all. So I want the entire Pareto front. So let's take all promising candidates. What are promising candidates? Well, I just introduced to the concept of dominance, and I would like to do it a bit more in detail because we are using exactly this. So we have two feasible solutions. We say X is dominating Y, and we use this funny symbol for this, if Fi of X is less or equal than Fi of Y for all I is 1 to K, and Fj of X is less than Fj of Y for a J in this index. That means that in all K elements, we are at least as good as the other guy, and in one, we are better. Sounds a bit funny, but that's a normal thing. If I want a particular product, a Marshall Woburn or whatever, right? It's very normal for me that I say, what is the cost in Sears and what is the cost in Liverpool? The product will be the same. So that means that all the performance indicators are the same, like quality, whatever, but the cost is different, right? So that's why we have to have these funny things, less or equal and less. It's a bit nasty, but we cannot get rid of this, and it makes sense to look at this. So we take domination, this relation. So whatever is dominated by something else will get rejected, right? And that's the archive, right? I mean, that's it, right? Here we see the entire archive. Input is an initial archive A0. So what we have gathered so far, it's a population, and we do our, well, it's not really magic, right? It's elementary stuff, and output is the new archiver, right? That's what we have. I don't want to go into detail in particular for this one. It's really straightforward. What every archiver has is an acceptance strategy, and they have a cleaning strategy. So you take something, at least temporarily, and then you have to reject something. That's what we have here. It's completely straightforward. It's not straightforward for number 2 and number 3 of the archivers I'm presenting later, but we start with this guy here. So we have this, right? And then we can show our convergence thing, right? For this, we need a framework, right? And we say, okay, our evolutionary algorithm or our search algorithm doesn't have to be evolutionary. It's just the generator. So I generate data and the archiver applied in a loop. So like this, I decouple it, and like this, I can only focus on the archiver. Generator, it can be your favorite algorithm. It can be evolutionary algorithm, and you can even say it's voodoo. Not really, right? Because we need some assumption. If the algorithm is bad, right, I never find something, I cannot keep that. So we need to make some assumptions, and these assumptions, they look horrible, but they are given by essentially all evolutionary algorithms, which are state of the art. So we have to say that during the run of the algorithm, we have to say that every neighborhood of every point in the domain is visited. Not every point, that is not possible. There are uncountably many elements, but I can visit the neighborhoods. Okay, that's what I do. And then we have here 2 theoretical results, right? The first theorem is not really a theorem, it's more a fact, but it is very important because that's the monotonicity. So it says that if we take now L populations, right, derived by NSGA2, at the end of the day, that's AL, the final archive, is nothing else than the number of dominated elements of the entire points, right? So we will not lose anything. This is a monotonic behavior. This is completely clear. It's not really a theorem because the dominance relation is transitive. So it's kind of clear. The other theorem is a bit more interesting and comes with a certain surprise. So it says under certain assumption, look at the book, we say an application of our genetic stochastic search algorithm leads to a sequence of archives where this happens. So we say this is the Hausdorff distance, the limits of the Hausdorff distance of the images of the archives, to the Pareto front goes to 0. So we get in the limit the entire Pareto front. Of course, we cannot get all because we have countably many elements even in the limit, but the Hausdorff distance says it's okay, right? So we get the Pareto front, but we do not get the Pareto set, right? Why not? we look at this example, and this example, it's a simplified one. We have here two objectives, which are the same. You can forget one of them. So the Pareto front is this image, these values, this and this. And the Pareto set is given by this point and this point, -2 and 2, right? So if I take now an archiver, which is based on dominance, I will not get both. The reason is dominance is defined in objective space. So if I have now uniformly sampled points here around, I will always get one point either near to -2 or +2. Only one, right? And the worst, it's even worse, they will flip, because if I have now this point, I find a point which is closer, getting better points, I will delete this guy and I will come closer. So during the run of the algorithms, I will have infinitely many flips, right? And of course, it can be that I get the same value. Yeah, but that happens with probability 0. So if I look at stochastic search algorithms, I cannot say I will get both. So I will not get both. I will get something which flips around. But in an objective space, I looked here at the images, I will get exactly this. And in general, we don't have to look at this picture. We get the Pareto front. We'll not get the Pareto set. There is another archiver which does this, but this one gets everything, right? So we are done. Archiving is done. No, it's not, right? Here we see the result on a toy example where we have two decision variables and two objectives. This is essentially a very good approximation of the Pareto front. Now, what we take is we feed the archiver with uniformly distributed points and see what happens. And we see exactly what we expect. We get a better and better approximation of the Pareto front. Well, but already for 100,000 points, we get 2,350 points, right, in the archive. So whenever we have a new candidate solution that, hey, is this good? We have to essentially compare them with all of them, right? So it becomes the bottleneck of the search. And 100,000 is nothing for a big problem. We're talking about millions of points which come inside, right? And if we have here 100,000 of points inside, we would generate a bottleneck, and that wouldn't be fine, because if we look at even at this guy to here, we get a more beautiful picture, yes, but I don't think in my car design problem or choosing problem, it would make any troubles, right? So if I get this, I would say, yeah, that's okay. I can choose the Porsche or the Tsuru, right? So that's fine, right? So it's possible to get all, right? We can have a nice theorem on this, but that's not the objective. So the next task is to get finite size approximation. That's not one task. I'm sorry for this. This is not just number 2 to 21 or something like this, right? So what can we do here? We use heavily the concept of epsilon dominance. And an epsilon dominance is very close to dominance, right? It looks here like the relation of dominance. We say X epsilon dominates Y because it's the same with this difference. We have a relaxation of epsilon, right? So here is the classical dominance relation. So if we have a point X such that F from X is here, and we have a point Y such that F from point Y is there, right? Then we say that X dominates Y. This Y is wrong. Sorry for this. It's another notation, right? So this is the region of dominance, and we relax it by this value of epsilon. It's a weaker concept of epsilon, of dominance. So why do we need that, right? Well, here is very bad that I don't have the application, the animation. Well, look at this guy. Here is a Pareto front, and here is schematically, well, here's maybe a point, and here is the region of epsilon dominance, right? So the big important thing here is that this one point here could cover, so to say, an entire part of the Pareto front. And the approximation quality is given by epsilon. That's the worst thing I can do. It's the worst thing I lose. And epsilon is given by the application, right? It could be 1 km/h for cars or whatever. You put this value of epsilon inside and it covers it. Here should have been another one where you see that you get an approximation in finitely many steps, right? You get it, it's fine. So this was already leading to 2 different archivers, which are just looking at these epsilon approximations, but we see if the Pareto front is flat, we will see that that one single point can already dominate or cover an entire large part of this front, and that is undesired in certain applications. It leads to not so nice pictures, but sometimes you have online optimization, you want to switch from one point to another, and you don't want to make big switches. This is not good. So you need the points in between. So what we need is an additional parameter, which is delta. So we say, if something is bigger than delta, then we don't want this anymore. We want a point in between, and epsilon dominance alone will not be enough, right? So I will not present the archiver, I just present the result. No, there is something missing. So, well, there are some results. I will not present the archive about the results. First of all, that I show already this, you can see it has a monotonic behavior now in terms of epsilon dominance. The other thing is we get an epsilon approximation of the Pareto front, which is gap-free measured by this value of delta, and you can show that the Hausdorff distance of the image of the archive and the Pareto front is less or equal than this delta from a certain iteration on and forever. So after finitely many iterations, you get what you want with probability 1. And the last thing is that all the archive elements in the limit will converge toward the Pareto set. So all of these elements will be optimal, right? So this is now a second archiver. I mentioned another archiver which only goes for epsilon dominance. And here we have a little comparison. We take the same problem. We take also 100,000 elements, right? We take the first archiver, which takes everything. We take the second archiver, which I just mentioned, which is only using an epsilon dominance and not looking at gap freeness. So we see here and here certain gaps. And this is the third archiver, which is one of our best archivers, I would say, right? And we get here a nice approximation of the Pareto front. The value of delta you can see more or less here, right? This is the upper bound we will get. Right, it's fine. I mean, approximation quality, sure, same, this is the best. This is the worst, this is then okay-ish, right? But if you say, I allow a iteration of this delta, that it's not okay-ish, it's perfect, right? So you say, I would like my car design problem, and the cost or the speed I would like to have in 10 kilometers per hour. Because I don't care if it's like 1 kilometer per hour, if it drives 300 or 301 kilometers per hour as maximum speed. So let's discretize this, and everything which is lower than this value is for you perfect, even if it doesn't look perfect right now. So this might be, given that the delta is fine, a perfect approximation. Even this is better, but now we have to look at the time. I mean, the archive size is 2,300, this archive size is 24. So we needed here 40 seconds just for the sequence of updating. And here we needed 4 seconds, which is around 10% of the cost for this. This is here 10%, but if I just increase this number, I can have it here 1%, 0.5%, or even less. Depends on the problem, because we cannot, or we should not update all if we have large amounts of data coming. Okay, that's now another thing. We looked also at other archives. When I use only epsilon dominance, I have the advantage or the problem, as you see it, that the longer the Pareto front is, the more elements I will need to cover these elements, these Pareto front, right? But some researchers said, you know what, I don't want this. I give you a budget of 100 elements, 300, 500, and do your best out of it, right? And it makes sense because this is used in order to compare algorithms. They said, I'm better than the other. Everybody wants to do that. I have the best algorithm, but you have to compare it, right? So, but if you say, I get 400 solutions and my competitor gets 600 solutions, it doesn't look good, right? So it has to be the same, right? And yeah, well, the community decided that that is good. So we looked for Archive Update HD, which is until now, I would say, our best archiver. This one is an a priori bounded archiver that says that you give a number before 100, 300, whatever, and the archive size should stay inside. It uses dominance and epsilon dominance in a funny way. And of course, the epsilon has to be adjusted, right? And since the epsilon has to be adjusted, right, funny things can happen because you can first get a local front and then switch to the local front. So we have to make like switches and resets. So we don't have a monotonic behavior anymore, but we have a quasi-monotonic behavior. So we go up or we go down, and it might be that we go up again in the quality. But at the end of the day, we will converge. And you can see that you can show that you will get a good approximation, and the approximation quality is even given by the archive. Right? So it means that you let the algorithm run, it comes up with an approximation, but it also comes with a value. And this value is the estimated Hausdorff distance. We can prove that this is an upper bound, and numerical results show that this upper bound is kind of tight. So at the end of the day, you get an approximation and you get the value. And if the value is 30, right, you know that this doesn't work for your methods, right? We said these holes are too big. There could be bikes in between which were interesting for me, right? But you don't know it in advance, so you have to run it again. But you have the information that, sorry, this gap might be too big. Right? Okay, so this is the third and last archiver I would present today. But there are many sets of interests, right? Of course, what we want first is the Pareto front. We want either all or we want approximation of them. There is even more. We could even ask for, that's something we do now, nearly optimal solutions. Nearly optimal solutions are solutions that are not necessarily optimal, but which are very close. So it doesn't drive 300 kilometers per hour, but 299. It's not optimal, but it might be interesting for you. And the greatest thing of all is, if points are near an objective space, they don't have to be near indecision variable space. They can be whatever. So they might give you another possibility. We have applied these together with the European Space Agency in space mission design, where the launch date was very interesting. So you got the optimal solution, but you also got a nearly optimal one. It's okay, but the launch time is 30 days later for this project, and that gives you an alternative or backup solution. You might be interested in the Pareto set. I told you if you take dominance, it doesn't work by this funny reason. So if you're interested in multiple pre-images, that's fine. You might be interested in local solutions. You might be interested not in the entire thing, but in certain regions, like new solutions, which is very important in many objective optimization. And what we're also doing right now, you may apply these to robust optimization. And yeah, basically done. Today I talked about multi-objective optimization. You can take home, it's not one solution, there is a manifold of solutions. You don't need this manifold at the end of the day because you need to make one realization, but to see what is good and not so good, it might be good still to have an approximation of this manifold. Right, and that leads to archiving. And well, for this, we have presented several strategies. One important thing is, which I have not mentioned before, shown the results, they can be used to show convergence of the evolutionary algorithms. Right, evolutionary algorithms are very effective, but they were designed on a solution-based approach. Right, hey, I can solve this. Right, but there was no theoretical foundation. So whatever you take as an archiver with a certain assumption, right? And you equip it with as an evolutionary algorithm, you equip it with the archiver, then this whole package, right, has the convergence property of the archive, right? So we presented several of these archivers for several purposes, and that's fine. We did it already for more than a decade. Right now, we are just looking at further things. The most important thing is to integrate the archiver into the evolutionary algorithm, because so far we have the population and we have the archiver. The archiver is passive, right? Just gets the data. But if the archiver sees, you know what, look in this direction, right? Then the archiver gets passive. And also, why should I have two different sets, right? It's just double of the cost. So this one is replaced and plugged into the evolutionary algorithm. But that's studies of future work. Yeah, and thank you very much. we are done for today.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias, Oliver. No sé si tengan, Mejito, para que le tomes la foto, preguntas, dudas. ¿No? ¿Todo les quedó claro? Mañana les voy a preguntar, ¿eh? Que conste. ¿No? ¿Seguros? Les encantó todo. Porque además,
This slide
Mira.
I stole from Carlos.
además
Yeah.
se nota que somos del equipo, ¿no? En fin. Carlos, ¿alguna queja, comentario? ¿Todo bien? Ok, entonces, ¿no? Los vi como con ganas de preguntar. Bueno, pues sí tenemos una pregunta. ¿La puedes decir en español?
Sí,
Sí.
sí, sí.
Dice, bueno, manda saludos Cristian Rojas, que nos ve todas las pláticas, él es de Perú, y dice, ¿cuáles son las áreas o tipos de problemas donde más se está utilizando en la actualidad los modelos multiobjetivo? Gracias y saludos desde Lima.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. Well, it's everywhere, right? I mean, I would say it's not restricted to any area. Wherever you want, you see multi-objective optimization. I have the picture of the particular product, right? So the particular product was like this speaker. If you want this speaker, you look at the 5 providers, you know, Sears, Liverpool, supermarket A, B, C, whatever, right? But maybe you don't need exactly this speaker, right? So this speaker says, okay, it has a certain specification, but also this speaker is very expensive. So you go to market and say, I would like to have a speaker with this specification. So maybe they don't have 240 watts or whatever, but they have 220, but it costs a bit less, right? So then you say, okay, good. So it's a multi-objective decision. So it's a trade-off, right? So you have these trade-offs, I would say, everywhere. So it's in engineering, in finance, basically wherever you want to make an optimal decision. We always have encountered that single objective optimization is not enough, right? So it's even now crazy because the industry since some years has seen that multi-objective optimization is important. So they said, hey, but we don't want 3 or 4, we want 10, 20 objectives, right? Because whatever 3 objectives you take and take a car, you cannot reduce it down to 3 objectives. You want all from your bike. Well, I'm German, so I want more, right? I don't know. But you cannot reduce it to 3. So then I said, well, if you can handle multi-objective, I'll give you 30 objectives. Yeah, well, 30 objectives means you have a manifold at dimension 29. That, well, I don't know. Even if you can handle it, it's a lot of data, right? We also work on many objective optimization, but that's the challenge right now, right? So I would say multi-objective optimization is everywhere. Even with modifications, it will get more and more complex during the years.
Muchas gracias. ¿Algún otro? No. Bueno, pues si no, muchísimas gracias.
No. Gracias a ti y a ustedes.
Gracias, perdón. Gracias a los que nos vieron en Facebook, gracias a los presentes y nos vemos dentro de 15 días en la próxima plática. Muchas gracias.
No.
El speaker era el Marshall.